Hi, welcome to this edition of Sojourners Along the Way. I am very excited about the topic and especially the two guests that you can see with me. We're going to talk about something that lots of people think about, and I'm going to introduce them, and then I'm going to tell you something I think is very special and just turn them loose. All right? We have Ned and Judy Maxson. And the topic, well, what I want Ned to make mention of is I had the opportunity back in May, I'm going to give away May 2017, so you can count from there. But in May of 2017, I had the fun, wonderful time, privilege of being with this couple at a celebration that they had in their life. And Ned made a comment at that time, back in May 2017, and he said it to me recently when we were talking about doing this program. So I want Ned to tell us what his comment was, and just you two of you take it from there.
The comment she's asking me about was that I said when I saw Judy for the first time, I knew that that's who I wanted to spend the rest of my life with and be married. And so far we've made it 50 years.
And I got to be at their 50th wedding anniversary. They have been married for over 50 years.
Yes.
Okay? Over 50 years. And so the topic that they are going to talk about is, how did you do it? 50 years with the same person.
Well, she got an award for that, you know. At our 50th anniversary, I saw that when we were trying to get folks to come, and I would talk to people, that they'd all say, Judy deserves an award for putting up with you for 50 years. So I took that to heart, and I went and had a gold medal made that had a picture of our wedding day on it, and it said around the outside, I survived 50 years with my husband Ned, and surprised her with it. I guess the first thing, if you're going to be married for 50 years, you have to live that long first.
We want to share with you 8 things that we came up with after Patricia asked us to do this. So the first one is faith, and we believe that we should have a shared faith, that we should grow together in our faith walk, and together develop a stronger faith. But in addition, the fruits of the Spirit, several of them seem relevant, and those are patience, kindness, gentleness, and self-control. And in any relationship, all of those should be required or present. In addition, of course, to love. And that's cue.
That's my cue. Love at first, you can't, you need to differentiate between love and infatuation or lust or whatever. I'm sure the first day that I saw this woman, I knew that I loved her, but I was also infatuated with her. So there is some mixing of things, but for love to mature and continue and mature, it doesn't just happen. You have to work at it. You have to make an attempt for it to become deeper and deeper. Love is unconditional. You need to let your mate know every day that you love them. I make a point to tell Judy, I do during the day, and I know I'm doing it more, maybe I'm doing it more than I think, but I make a point to tell her the last thing that I say at the end of the day is that I love you. Now, whether she hears it sometime or not, because we go to bed at different times. But I tell her that I love her, and I try to tell her during the day, and not only tell her, but show her. Okay.
How would you say that you show it? I don't know if I'm asking for some private information or not.
No, that's fine. Well, you walked in, we were holding hands.
Yeah, I know.
That's common for us. We walk down the street holding hands, and people look at us like we're weird. But you know what? That's a great weird.
I think it's a great example.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I want our viewing audience to gain. Married for 50 years. That is a super milestone. And nowadays people aren't lasting that long, not even a tenth of that for some people. And so I want you to just, if you will, divulge all of your secrets.
Well, the secret is not keeping secrets. Being open with your mate and being, sharing and the good and the bad. And there's both. I mean, there's, it's not a get married and it's live happily ever after situation. Like I said before, you have to work at it. It's one of those things where some people say, well, it's a 50-50 situation. Well, it isn't a 50-50 situation. It's I told her the other day, it's probably 60-40, and she says, I think it's a 100-0 situation on both sides.
Yeah.
You have to trust your mate, and trust is not an easy thing for me, but it is with her. I mean, we grow together. We're growing older, but we're growing together. How's that?
One of the things the minister who married us said, that he said there are 3 things you should say to each other frequently. And one of them was what Ned just said, I love you, that you express it verbally as well as hugs, kisses, and physical touch. But, and eventually we'll do all 3, but the next thing on our list is commitment. And the idea that you're making a long-term commitment to the other person. Today it seems that people think if things get rough, we can just separate and end it, and that's no big deal. It is a big deal to stay together and to work at staying together. So a commitment to marriage long term, knowing there's going to be rough places that you have to get through, and taking that commitment to each other seriously and honoring it. And again, that's sometimes challenging, but it has to be the core of what is inside you, that this is my mate for life. And one of the things Ned brought up then was communication. So,
well, communication is the next thing that we had here on our list. Not that that's, definitely not a total list of things, but that just happened to be the next thing on our list. And communication, basically, men, I'm going to make a broad statement here, but men basically are fixers. They want to solve problems. When your wife or your mate comes to you and says, hey, I need this or I need that, they want to go take care of it and fix it. When I found out a long time ago that probably or maybe the only thing they wanted to do was have you listen. And guys, listening fixes a lot of things. And it saves you, going out and fixing or trying to fix when when all they really want is for you to listen, and really listen to what they had to say, and share with each other. Don't let things build up. Keep lines of communication open. If you let things, if you have a problem, talk with each other about it. Don't let it fester. Don't let it build up, and then all of a sudden, it's like shaking up a bottle and the top comes off of it.
Close up.
Yeah. So communication, we believe, is a key in making things work.
It came up earlier that the road isn't smooth, that there are challenges, and like every relationship, ours is at rough times.
Really?
The key is to face those together, to stand by and support each other, to problem solve together. One of the other things the minister said to us that we should say frequently is, "I'm sorry." So there are times where you fight, but at the end, you say, "I'm sorry," and you make up. And there are times where things are serious enough that one or both of you or together, maybe you need some counseling. And that's okay. That's what helps you move and grow forward.
May I jump in?
Sure.
Okay. Since Judy mentioned about counseling, I want to highlight that. One of the healthiest things that you can do for yourself, for your spouse, for your marriage, is when you hit a hard spot, you're at a standstill, get somebody else's perspective, because somebody else can see or hear something that you might be experiencing a blind spot to. Yep. And that can be not just an eye-opener, but it could also help to let the relationship grow. You agree?
Yes, definitely.
The next thing that we had written here was an attitude of gratitude. Not just saying I'm sorry, but also saying thank you when there's positive things that you need to reinforce. Count your blessings instead of your downfalls. It's a whole lot easier to count your blessings, I believe, and we all have them. You may not think that they are blessings until you stop and actually start thinking about, how have I been blessed? And God blesses me every day. Every day.
Oh, thank you was one of the things the minister said as well. And words of affirmation for your spouse, things that are positive to say to each other. The next thing on our list is learning and growing. As individuals and together, we think you have to grow, and you can do that together and should do that together.
I want to take you back because you mentioned about rough places. That's something every marriage is going to go through. There are always, even though everybody says, "Oh, but we love each other," this is like newlyweds, and that's going to see us through. Well, yeah, there has to be that firm foundation of love, but there will be, for those of you that are going to say, "No, we're not going to have that happen to us." But in the event that you do hit a rough spot someplace, what got you guys through your rough times? And if you are willing, I'm going to ask a private question. What was the rough spot or a rough spot or rough spots? And also, audience, I want you to know they're holding hands.
What got us through, which probably should have been at the very top of our list here, and on our notes here it says to put your spouse second only to God. And I used to use that as an icebreaker with my students, actually. I would tell them that my wife was the second best thing that ever happened to me. And of course, they immediately will go, what do you mean the second best thing? And I said, and she's okay with it because finding God, finding Christ was the first best thing in my life. And I consider myself to be a young Christian, actually. November 23rd, 2003 was the day that I truly began to follow Christ. And anyway, along with...
Sounds like there's a story there, Ned.
Well...
I want to see if I can do the math. You've been married 50 years, so that takes you back to 19-something, doesn't it?
Yeah.
1967.
Okay,
April,
so
or
1967.
June 15th.
Yeah. But you're saying you didn't make your commitment to God until 2003?
I didn't make a total commitment. I've known all my life that there was a supreme being and that he loved me. But I didn't make the commitment. He had made the commitment to me, but I hadn't returned the commitment. Actually, our son was instrumental in getting us back in the church. He said he wanted to go to church, and of course, if he wants to go to church, we took him. So that's
pretty good.
It is. That's what got us going back in the church. But then to make the total commitment, I know that being baptized and being saved are not the same thing. But for me it was. That's the day that it happened. Our small group, there was a small group meeting at our house, it still meets at our house, had said, I asked them, should I be baptized? I was baptized as a child, but I didn't know it. And they said, yes, baptism is an outward, you saying to the world, this is who I am, and this is who I'm going to be. And so that was the night that I was baptized in front, at the church in front of everybody, and I made that commitment at that point in time, and I followed it, and I'm so happy that I have.
Very powerful. And I can tell it still touches your heart, and that's
Well,
wonderful.
of course
Ned.
it does.
Keep that tender heart.
I'm a wash rag. Anything else, dear?
I think one of the other things is to make time for each other. Once you have a child or children, there's a tendency to put all the focus there. But the thing that will help children most is a strong relationship between the parents. And that requires, especially as we get busy, that we take time and make time for each other and put up each other first.
Would you say that before 2003, and we didn't hear from you as to when your time was that you made a commitment to God, but I'm going to dig and see if I can get if I can anticipate the answer. Were the years prior to 2003, and that would have actually have been the majority of your marriage, right? This program is being recorded in January 2018. So 2003 is starting to become 15 years ago. And if you're married for 50 years, that means you have like 35 years of marriage prior to that commitment for Ned. So were those 35 years bumpier than the last 15 years?
The answer there is yes.
Yes. I think you develop more patience and tolerance the older you are. Plus, if you have faith, you look at things differently. But I'd have to say that, I mean, like Ned, I've always believed there was a God. And well, at least as a child, I did. I believed it more strongly as a teenager through Girl Scouts. But when Vic took us to church, Vic and I were baptized on the same day, and he would have been in 8th grade. So I'm trying to think backwards here. 1983.
Okay.
So I would say there's been faith that's a part of our life all that time. And it was only because of faith after one really rocky time that we stayed together and rebuilt trust and remade the commitment to a lifelong marriage.
Well, to kind of summarize and wrap things up here, the challenge here was to tell you how we made it for 50 years. Actually, we've been together 55 years, but we've been married 50 plus at this point. The 8 points that we came up with were faith, love, commitment, communication, challenges, an attitude of gratitude, learning and growing, and putting your spouse first after God.
And since it didn't come up, I want to tell you part of the story that they did talk about at their 50th anniversary. And that was that, as Ned said, when he met Judy, he knew that she was the woman he wanted to marry and spend the rest of his life with. But what he didn't say, and we have a debt to say thank you to Ned because he is a veteran. When they got married, well, I'll let you guys tell that, okay, would you?
Well, how we got married?
Well, yeah, what you
I was stationed in New York at the time in the Army, and Judy was going to Ohio State studying to be a nurse. And we had planned to get married after I got out of the military. Well, I got orders to go overseas, so I called her and I said, look, I want to get married before we go overseas. Would you marry me? And that was, over the telephone, for goodness sakes. So she made all the arrangements. I came home on a 3-day pass and we got married, and I went back, and I was back for a week or so, maybe two. At base, and then I got 30 days leave. So I came home and we lived together for 30 days, and then I was gone for 13 months.
So you were married, had the opportunity to spend 30 days, and then you got deployed and were gone for 13 months.
A heck of a way to start a marriage.
Yeah, big test.
But apparently it works. But then the other part of that was, as you know, at our 50th celebration, I tricked her into coming up on stage with the idea of giving her this award for being able to spend 50 years with me. And as soon as we made the award, I dropped to one knee and proposed to her properly.
And it was very moving.
And
not a dry eye in the entire audience.
Including mine.
Of course, at this age, I wasn't so sure I could get up from that knee. So we had a chair stationed aside there, just in case. I didn't need it. Everything was working that day.
That's good. Yeah. So see, 50 years. It is possible to do it. Living proof.
It is. And it's been great. And it just keeps getting better.
Oh, say that again, Ned.
It just keeps getting better.
Yeah.
You're sweet.
And Any other last words?
No.
No? All right, please. This program is also available online, YouTube very graciously. As you put in Sojourners, do a search, put in Sojourners Along the Way, YouTube, they will give you a partial list. At the top of that list, it will say Sojourners Along the Way, YouTube. Click on that, and that will take you to the full list, and there you will find the program. I want to say a big thank you to the two of you for coming today.
Okay.
Yes.
Hi, I have a very special guest with me who's going to address long-distance relationships. And we have to, and it's from a personal perspective, okay? My guest name is Dawn. And Dawn, I am so excited that you are here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I'll speak on her behalf that she was nervous about coming. But we're going to have fun because you have a fun story. In fact, we were talking off air, and I was asking Dawn some questions about what we would talk about. And so let's start with, how long have you known this individual that's in your life?
Well, I have known my husband for 23 years total.
But you weren't married for all of that.
We weren't married. No, we've been married for 7 years.
So that meant they knew each other like 16 years before getting married.
Yes.
That's amazing.
It is.
Especially in nowadays time. So give us a little bit of your history, would you please?
Sure.
Like how did you meet?
Okay, I can do that.
Stuff.
Yes. Yes, my husband and I, we actually were both students at Ohio University, and we had mutual friends. We really didn't know one another before then. And it just so happened we had mutual friends, and we had crossed paths at different outings. And one morning, we happened to both be in the cafeteria at the same time. I actually was there first and sat down at the table, and no one was there. And then he arrived and sat down at the same table, and we started talking. And from there, we developed a friendship, and it just progressed from that point on.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when you say cafeteria, do you mean Ohio University dining hall?
Yes, the Ohio University dining hall, Nelson Dining Hall.
I was just going to ask you which one, because they have more than one. So the famous Nelson.
Yes, it was Nelson.
We have to give a big applause to Nelson for getting the two of you together, huh?
Absolutely.
Okay. So you were in the cafeteria, and you had lunch together?
We were having, it was actually brunch. I believe it was Sunday, so it was a brunch. And we were eating, and we just started talking over lunch. It was just so happened we were the only two that were at that table and in the dining hall at that time.
Okay, and so from the dining hall, great place to meet.
Yes.
Yeah. It progressed, and you said 23 years.
Yes, which is a long
but
time.
I was thinking you had to have been only 5 years old.
No.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
Not at all? Okay. So 23 years. So in 23 years, you started out together here in Athens, Ohio, Ohio University.
Yes.
And go ahead, tell us a little bit.
Well, we started out here at Ohio University, and we dated for a couple of years, and then actually my husband, well, now husband, at the time he was still finishing up, and I was finishing my undergraduate degree, and then we found out that we were expecting, and so I decided that I knew I wanted to go on and stay in school, and because he was still here finishing, I decided to go ahead and apply and see if I could get into the master's program, and I did.
Wow.
So I continued on here, and he continued on. And then with us having our son, the situation, because my husband was in ROTC prior to.
Now, I'm going to translate that.
Oh.
That's ROTC. You have to figure out what it means. But it means that it's connected to the military.
Yes.
Okay.
Connected to the military, absolutely.
Yeah.
So he was actually in the ROTC when we met. And after having our son, he then actually began doing active service in
So
the
we
military.
need, audience, we need to say a big thank you. You're looking at a military wife, because that is not an easy thing to do.
No, it isn't, because just within a matter of months after having our son, then my husband had to go off, well, then boyfriend, now husband, had to go off for training. And so he and I were in a long-distance relationship for some time. So we spent a lot of time writing letters and me just receiving postcards and not really knowing when he would be back exactly. And then there was a season where he actually was on active duty, and one of the times when we were at war. And by the grace of God, he was able to still stay here, but he was in another city. And so just having to deal with that, and then figuring out how to still stay connected through it all.
Yeah.
And that was different, you know, having to travel and then visit him on a base and having that experience, and just having the stress of him going through the time of doing the paperwork and wondering, will he return home safely? So that's just some of the stressors that we've had to go through in our journey, but it's worked out very well, to say the least.
And I want to help you to unpack that a little bit, because there are people that are in long-term relationships
Yes,
and they don't work out.
yes,
So you started out here in Athens.
correct.
He was involved in ROTC, and then when he completed it, he joined the military. What
Yes.
branch?
He was in the Army.
In the Army.
Yes.
So we do want to say a big thank you to him also.
Yes.
Not just you, but you know that he was in the military and served the country. And how long was he in the military?
He was in the military about approximately 9 years. Approximately 9 years.
Okay. And for how much of that was he away? Oh, dearie, that's a hard
Boy,
one.
That is a hard one, because there were times where he was away for the training, and then there was a time when he was away for active duty, and then there was a season when he did National Guard as well.
Oh, wow.
So then he was away a weekend.
So he did
So-
a lot of away.
Yes, he did a
Yes.
lot of away.
In being away, now you did say you wrote letters and he sent postcards.
Yes.
I thought that was
Yes,
cute.
yes.
You did the letter
I
writing.
did the letters.
he
He did do
the-
some letters. In his
Okay,
defense, he
okay.
did do
We'll
some
give him-
letters.
We'll give
Yes.
him credit for that.
Yes.
I was thinking you were going to say phone calls.
We did have some phone calls, but the challenge with phone calls is that they're limited.
What do you mean?
They're, you know, they're very limited in terms of how much time you can be on the phone. And it's not a given that it would be daily. Whereas in a letter you can get a lot more out. In a letter, letters, in my opinion, are much more detailed, much more expressive, and they allow you to reread them. So even when that person isn't there, even when you've hung up the phone, you're still able to read over that letter and almost have those, you know, reunite those feelings that you felt the first time you heard them say, I love you, or I miss you, or whatever it is that the message is being conveyed at that time.
I like that point. And so, viewing audience, if you are in a long-distance relationship, how do you keep the love? That is the topic of this program. And I asked Dawn because I knew she had been in a long-distance relationship. And I wanted to pick your brain as to how to help our viewing audience to have a successful relationship. And you're saying writing letters.
Yes.
And being able to look at them again. That is a huge, I think. Because nowadays, we don't have a letter writing.
No, we're in the texting and generation, so there aren't very many letters that are being written these days. It's a lost art.
Yeah.
I think.
So what do you think about suggesting letter writing? And, for people who are now in this generation of we don't do letter writing, how would you encourage somebody to start writing?
I would say just simply to get started. I mean, and not to don't think about the length of the letter. Just start writing. The important thing is that you're communicating with your loved one, you're expressing your feelings, and that those feelings are being communicated to the person that matters most. And so I would say just to get started, to write, and to mail the letter, to go through with mailing it. And then the joy that comes from when you actually receive a response, I think allows the love to sustain itself. And of course, there's times when you might get the chance to visit, and of course you want to maximize those moments and just focus on the positive.
That sounds really good. Now, he's not in the military anymore,
No.
but they're still in a long-term situation.
Again.
Yes. And this is now
Yes.
23 years later.
This is 23 years later, yes. And situation had it where my husband had to be in a different state. And so, so we've now been separated.
No, well, let's not use that word.
Okay.
Okay, they are in a long-distance relationship.
Yes.
Yes, they are together, okay, but separated by
Yes,
distance, so
by
we're going to call it
distance.
long-distance relationship.
Yes, and so we've been separated for some months. And now with technology as it is, we are able to still write, but we also can use, like Duo, which is very similar to FaceTime or Skype, if you're familiar with Skype. And so we really enjoy that because it lets us see each other and talk, even if it's just for 5 minutes. It's just the time that counts.
And now in this time, because
Yes.
he's not in the military,
Yes.
you have the freedom to decide what time, and he is
Yes.
actually living in the same time zone. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And
yes.
that does have a different effect.
It does. It's a very different feeling when you don't know from day to day when you will get to talk to your loved one, or if they are safe. It's a very different feeling. So having them to be in a position where they're a little bit more in control of the time, and the environment isn't as private, I guess you can say, then that does make a huge difference. But most importantly, I would say writing the letters, maximizing the time that you do have with each other, and the phone calls, regardless of how brief, it all works to benefit the relationship.
Yeah. And her husband is not here right now because he is in a different city.
Yes.
I
Yes.
was hoping that we would be able to record the program when he was in Athens,
Yeah.
but that did not happen.
Yeah.
So what would you say if you had to choose something you've already said or something different, some words of wisdom that you want to get across to our audience, how to make a long-distance relationship work and marriage?
I would say one of the things that I haven't said previously is to pray for your spouse. Plain and simple, every day. Because by praying for them, it keeps them close to your heart. It keeps your relationship close in a spiritual way. But I think most importantly is to pray for them daily. Secondly, I would say to focus on the positive instead of thinking about what it could be or what your peers have at that moment. Focus on the beauty of your relationship and where it is in that season, and maximize the time that you do have together. And write your letters. Yes, and write your letters. Yes,
I
I
love
would
it.
say that.
So, viewing audience, you have had some really good information. Please take it to heart and fill it with love.
Yes, that's what the world needs more of,
Oh,
right?
it sure does. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're most welcome. I'm thankful that you came. Hi, I'm here with Linda Barry, who is the pastor with her husband, Jim, of Cornerstone Harvest Church, located in Hollister, Ohio, which is near Gloucester, Ohio. If you're ever in the area on a Sunday, church service is Sunday evening at 6 p.m.
Amen.
And I hope you can come. You will be blessed. So we're continuing on our topic of having love that will last, marriages that can endure. And so I asked Linda to talk about that. And so Linda, go for it.
Well, first thing I want to say when it comes to marriage, prior to it, make sure that you actually love the person. And it may sound, I don't know, jumping from one topic to the next, but finances, I think, is something that you should talk about prior and carry it out. One of the things that me and my husband do, my husband and I, is everything is ours. It's not mine or his. It's ours. I think now, not necessarily in this order, but part of respect, but mutual respect. It's really hard to do something, one-sided. It requires two. And don't talk negative about your spouse to other people. I think that is so essential, because you think that, well, there's no way that they're ever going to find out, but the thing of it is, it doesn't matter. You got those words out there. Commitment, I think, is, it ranks right up there with it. I think everything is number one that I'm about to tell you. It's not number 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's number one. That's very important. Commitment to each other. Paying attention to the views of the other one. Considering it. I believe that we should hear it. And we do. We all hear each other, but we're not listening at times. And that's the part we need to do is to listen. Spending regular time. Now that's all different for each person, each family. Depends on if you have children, depends on if you don't have children yet, or whatever the case is. But spending regular time, because as you grow, as you mature in number as well as within yourself, there's change. And how are you going to know the change unless you spend some time with each other? One of the things that we do not do is, like if there's something negative, we don't think that the other person doesn't love the other person. Sometimes when there's some negative thing going on or a disagreement, well, they don't love me. They don't love me. That's not the case. That's not true. But the word that we feel is a very, very bad word. It's a cursed word. Is the word divorce. When people are not agreeing, first thing that comes out of their mouth is, well, I'll just divorce you, because we've heard different ones down through the years. I think that's a huge part of the key, and it's one key. All these things are one key. Do something special for the other one. If you know that the other one, that your spouse I'm talking about, is, there's something special that they like, that's what love is. Just do something special for the other person. And get projects to do with each other. There we go again, spending time, but, why be married? The projects that you actually do together, the reason we feel that they're essential, it's you get to know each other even more. And don't forget, as the years go by, you need to know more about the individual. And that can't be unless you spend some time together. We believe that married people need that time. Another thing too is keep a balance. Have time to yourself. Allow your spouse to have time to himself, because there's an old saying that's absence makes the heart grow fonder. But it's a time of reflection. It's a time of just doing what you want to do. And as we know, male and female are definitely different. Communication is a must. Why be married if you don't communicate in some way? Hopefully your spouse is your best friend. But the reason why many aren't best friends is because the time's not spent. Keep yourself for your spouse. Because like the Bible says, when two join together, they're one. When there's a disagreement, always remember, it's not saying they do not love you. It's just a disagreement. There's always a solution to every disagreement. And if there's not, that could be a possibility because you don't know it, maybe. If there's not, then disagree to disagree. Or agree to disagree. Got that one. And listen, if there's one thing to hear, listening is one thing, but hearing is another. We all hear one another, but we don't listen sometimes. But that requires a real good explanation on the other's part, so that you can get over there into the listening place. And there's many books like they say, but I think women need it, but they say that men were supposed to paint pictures, and I have found that to be true, but I'm also included. I think painting pictures, giving examples, helps a person to listen, not to mention to understand.
What do you mean by paint a picture?
Giving words, more words to describe whatever the situation or circumstance is. And there's plenty of words. Everything I shared except loving your spouse is all a process of growing. That's the part that a lot of people don't allow themselves to do, is to grow. But that's in everything. That could be on a job. We could insert that. It could be your neighbors, your relatives, your children, whatever. We're all growing. Nobody has the whole entire picture. That's as years go by. No matter where you are in a relationship, you're growing. Amen. And if you have if you've been married 6 months or 60 years, you're still growing. No couple starts out perfect or ends perfect. We've got to think about that. And even if we could, every level, let's say it's levels, every level of marriage, every level of relationship, there isn't perfection. The only one who is perfect is Jesus Christ himself. But I'll tell you what it will do. It'll make you better. You will, it's neat how married couples are, because they actually complement one another. Even in things that what she can't do, he can do. What he can't do, she can do, vice versa. I just think God is so, marriage brings forth balance in life. And, even Jesus has a bride coming. Marriage puts things in or takes things out. It takes, and when I say takes things out, taking the negative part of you out. The number one thing to me would be selfishness, because I guarantee you, when you're living with somebody, it's going to show you how selfish you are, or maybe how selfish you are not. But I don't know of anybody that's like that. It will show you and keep you from, like I said, selfishness, and if you allow, but that's if you allow for it, okay? Because we can just, dig your heels into the sand and not move. We're just going to stay in whatever we're staying in. Marriage is listening, sharing, growing, maturing. Friendship, last but not least, loving, okay? And don't allow for anyone or anything to come in between you and your spouse. And if something would be said and you know your spouse would not be capable of that, you trust them, you believe them. But don't allow anything to come in the middle, because there's tons of things in life that can actually do that. And hey, blessings upon your marriage, or a soon-to-be one.
Now, you have been married to the same man and only one husband for how many years?
49 years.
49 years. So very soon you're coming up on 50 years, which is absolutely tremendous. And I want to say a tremendous role model for people to learn from. Of all those years, what do you think is the one thing that really helped the two of you to stick together? You've given us lots of good, information to help a marriage, but what helped your marriage the most?
Well, the first 9-10 years we weren't born again. So if you would subtract that 9-10 years, from 49, you got 39 years there, 39, 40 years. I have to contribute because he's born again also, my husband is. It has to be God, because it's actually applying the goodness of God, because the Word of God is good. It's applying the goodness of God to every situation. And if you're not willing, there's the Holy Spirit. And let me tell you something, conviction is really a tough thing, just being convicted. But conviction drives you toward doing what's right. In 1 Corinthians 13, I mentioned that the other day, but I like the part where God says the love of God is patient. I like the word patient. That's something I'm not real good at. I've had to grow in that one. My husband's more patient than what I am. But there is things I'm more patient about than what he is. So that probably is going back to that complimentary type thing. Love is kind. Love is gentle. And see, it's kindness, because there's so many people, they really do a lot of ripping and tearing their spouses behind their backs. And I just really feel that's not being kind. So see how the scriptures, when God's word, which is living, when that's brought in there, you're more apt. Now, inside of you're going by the Holy Spirit. Now, is that kind? Is that whatever, So, yeah, that's what I definitely would say. There's just no two ways of looking at it. God is number one. Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to tell our viewing audience?
No, not really, unless you have a question that I can answer.
Well, you covered a lot of territory, and I think it's tremendous, so I hope our viewing audience will apply these things. And I would say that not just for a marriage, but in a relationship, that what you have said can be very helpful for friends. And I think that's tremendous also. So I thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Love. We really, really need to help and get love back into relationships. There's way, way too many divorces in this country. People are hardly making it until 5 years of marriage before getting divorced. I know of some relationships where people were married for 30 years and then got a divorce. What helps marriages to stay together? This program did focus primarily on marriage, but a lot of the things that were spoken about can be applied to other relationships, particularly friendships. So whatever will help you, wherever you are in life, please take those pieces of information and apply them to your life. I want to give a little bit of a recap of what was spoken, because I feel that the guests today, and I am very thankful for Ned and also Judy, his wife, Maxon, being here on this program. I'm very thankful for Dawn. Williams being on this program, and also Linda Barry. Their husbands were not able to be here at this time, but they had excellent things to say. And especially I like that Dawn, I talked with her off camera about the long distance relationship, and they've had a really long distance relationship throughout their marriage and before their marriage also. We need to learn the things that they said. I particularly liked that Dawn said that she's kept those letters. After 23 years, she still has all of those letters, and from time to time has gone through the letters again. And off camera, when we were having the conversation, I was telling her that, well, why don't you bring them out again and read them again, because Valentine's Day was coming up at the time that this program was being recorded. And she said, yeah, that would be a good idea. So I pass that on to you. And even if you are together under the same roof, still you can write love letters to each other. Keep that spark alive. That will lead me into some of the comments made by our guests. The beauty of your relationship. Focus on that. Having a relationship that grows together, will stay together. Learn how to grow love. Everything is ours. I thought that was a really interesting comment by Linda. How do you think about things? Is this yours and this is mine and you can't touch what's mine, it's not yours? Or do you think of things as they're ours? Communication and commitment were things that all of the guests brought up one way or another. Help your spouse to learn how to communicate. If you've never heard of it before, there's a book called The 5 Love Languages by Gary Smalley. What is your spouse's love language? What needs do they have to hear certain things, or how they feel that love is expressed? Keep yourself for your spouse. That is utmost. And that is an area that has just hurt so many marriages. Learn to find solutions. Listen to each other. Respect. Tremendous, tremendous things. And I like that all three of them, 3 segments of the program, focused on faith. What kind of faith do you have? How can your faith help your marriage? All marriages are going to face challenges. So if you admit that in the beginning and say, we're going to work through things, that goes right hand in hand with commitment. Your attitude of gratitude. Learn to put your spouse first after God, and you will succeed. May God bless you.